for salvation and social justice. I am very happy to be here this evening to talk about all things birthing and all things beautiful about Black birth here in New Jersey. And I will turn it over to my esteemed colleague and sister panelist, Linda Locke.
Hi, good evening. Excuse me. Thank you, everybody, and thanks for inviting me. I'm Linda Sloan Locke. I am a certified nurse midwife and a licensed social worker. I have been practicing in the state of New Jersey for over 40 years. That's as much as I will admit to. I've been working with birthing people and women throughout the lifespan during that time. I'm also very committed to eliminating disparities and lifting up beautiful Black birth. Have worked in a variety of settings in midwifery, from community hospitals to large teaching hospitals to my own midwifery private practice to FQHCs. So really have had a variety of kinds of experience in midwifery, and also have worked on the state level to address issues in disparities for Black birthing people. I currently sit on the New Jersey Maternal Mortality Review Committee, as well as working with the Perinatal Quality Collaborative's Health Disparities work group. So thanks for having me this evening.
Thank you all very much. And we will also be joined by Kayla, Lloyd very soon. So I just appreciate you all being here. And we can go ahead and get started. So my first question that I have for you all is, what is a doula and what is a midwife? And whoever would like to take that question first. Okay, what is a doula? So I'll pass it over.
I actually was going to say, why don't we go with midwife first? Because doulas, we support our midwives, and I think that that's a proper way to answer the question.
Okay, sure. So midwife means to be with woman, right? And we still say that we are the oldest profession. If you go back to, the earliest times and you look at in the pyramids and you look at the pictures on the walls, you see midwives helping women give birth. So midwives are professionals who not only attend birth, but also take care of women throughout the lifespan. So certified nurse midwives, who make up the majority of midwives in the state, the scope of practice includes all reproductive health care and primary health care for women from adolescence through menopause. We also have certified professional midwives who focus primarily on the birthing person and are primary health care providers for women and birthing people during pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. When people say, well, what is a midwife? I say, well, instead of going to an OBGYN, you go to a midwife. So the midwife is the person who is providing your care for you, not only during pregnancy, prenatally, birthing, postpartum, but also ongoing throughout your life. So that's midwifery. And I think the other thing is that for midwifery, and people say, well, how is it different? Is because for midwives, as for doulas, the person, the mother, the birthing person is at the center of our care. And we say, we like to partner with you in your health care and uplift you so that your health is our priority. Crystal? And Kayla, I see Kayla has joined us with a little person.
Hi, Kayla. So a doula, we are your labor coaches. We are not as clinical as a midwife, but we do provide comprehensive comfort techniques and education around labor support. We are able to help in your prenatal process as well as also obviously during labor and delivery and postpartum support. Some don't necessarily like the word doula because the term is usually actually a slave to the woman or slave to the mother, historically speaking. So some of us prefer the term birth workers. There's other terminology that we go by, but That is the main difference between a midwife and a doula. As Linda spoke, you heard that they care for women throughout the entire life, right? Where we come in primarily during your perinatal time, right? We're not with you as you go through menopause and go through your other different changes. We're here when it's time for baby. We also have the ability to provide lactation support, help you with first latch, your basic breastfeeding support or chest feeding support. Some of us have additional certifications that go beyond your basic breastfeeding or chest feeding support. But your most doulas, especially your labor and delivery doulas, can get you started along the way. Kayla, did you want to jump in on what is a doula?
I guess I could just speak to, because you basically said everything. I guess I could just speak to the labor, but then also postpartum doula. So there's multiple types of doulas out there, not even just labor and postpartum. There's also fertility doulas, as well as bereavement or a grief doula as well. And those individuals, so when it comes to fertility, they help women kind of get their body in a healthy place where they're able to become pregnant, and then they kind of stay with them along that process. And bereavement or grief doula, that is somebody that kind of stands beside mom and family, or just family in the process of a loss. So.
Oh, and Kayla, would you mind introducing yourself?
Absolutely. Again, I do apologize for the lateness. Had some technical issues trying to get on. But my name is Kayla Lloyd. I am the founder and CEO of Abounding Love Doula Services. That's where I provide not only labor and postpartum doula services, but also lactation. I am a CLC, which is a certified lactation counselor, as well as a childbirth educator.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
So a follow-up question to all your descriptions of a doula and a midwife. Can one role work without the other? There can be a midwife without a doula, but not a doula without a midwife, and vice versa. Do those roles have to work together, or can they work completely separate? And I would love to ask that to you, Linda.
So it's not either and, it's both. Both, right? So it's not either or, it's both and. So yes, we can work independently of each other, but I think we work best when, like the best outcomes for Black people and Black birthing people is when we work together, because there's so much synchrony in our philosophy, right? We're all centered around the birthing person and the birthing family. And so we really just support each other and make that experience the best it can be. Now, as midwives, we don't always have the availability of a doula, and very often we will do some of the same kinds of things with our patients as far as supporting people in labor. I mean, I've been with people for 2 and 3 days, supporting them through their labor, and doing the back rubs and doing the positioning and all that. It would be good to have a doula to work with together to do that, but yes, we can do it on our own. And I think in a similar way, doulas can work with a practice of, say, an OBGYN and add their scope to that person's practice. So we can work together and we can work independently of each other.
Thank you so much. Does anyone else have anything to add? Should cover that one. Okay, great. And kind of going along with that, so now we know what doulas and midwives do. So now how do you become a doula? What's the education? Is there training? How long does it take? How do you even, go about getting this training? So just a little background of how you become part of these professions.
Did you want to take it, Crystal, or you want me to go for that one? You want me to go for it? Okay. So technically, you do not have to be trained. However, there are various types of trainings that you can go through. I can name many: Ancient Song, Kappa, Dona, Uzazi Village. The list goes on in regards to certification programs. One of the things that I always say, do your research, find out what best aligns with your morals, your values, the things that you care about. Because you know, I am the type of person that I am. I went through a couple different ones just because I appreciate knowledge, and because I wanted to focus mainly on people of color, I went through Ancient Song as well as Uzazi Village, and then, you know, ended up, well, Kappa was actually one of my first ones that I went through. And then once I went through that one, I found out like, okay, social justice is more so the area that I'm focused on. And so Uzazi Village and Ancient Song really spoke out to me. So one thing I would definitely say, make sure you do your research. And yeah, the trainings, they last, well, each one is different. So I can't say, oh, this one lasts a weekend or this one lasts 6 months. But each one is different, and you can find out the different timeframes by looking up that information on each one's website. So most of these certification programs, they have websites and people that you can reach out to. And most people, or most of the organizations, they'll really walk you through that process. And once you acquire that knowledge, I would highly recommend, you know, finding some type of mentor, somebody that's been doing this for some time. That wasn't information that was given to me, but again, because I am the type of person that I am, I sought out people that have been doing this and have had years in the game. And through, you know, just shared experiences, somebody that you can call on to say, hey, this is what I'm experiencing, you know, within this process or within this person, this is what they're dealing with, not necessarily giving all of their business, but, you know, it's important to not feel like, oh, I know or from this certification program, I know everything that I'm going to know, because that is not the truth. You know, when you're sitting or going for like your first birth, sometimes it can be a little intimidating, because it's like, okay, wow, this is, you know, this is something that I've been training for. And now that I'm here, okay, what do I do with this wealth of knowledge? And to me, continue to learn and continue to have like that support system around you that will continuously say, hey, try mile circuit, you know, try you know, a hip squeeze or something like that within this scenario, or whatever the case may be. So yeah.
I just wanted to jump in and say, while you don't have to be certified, certainly encourage certification, because as we move towards to really fight the disparities in Black maternal health, a lot of spaces are going to start looking for you to have certain credentials. We want to see verification that you've been certified and you've been trained. And I certainly encourage you to go through the trainings like the ones that Kayla listed. I'll add to the list Shafia Monroe consultant training, because you definitely want to have the ones that include the racial justice component to it, because that is something that we're so like heavily hit with, and something that we're really up against here in New Jersey when it comes to making birthing spaces beautiful for Black birthing people in New Jersey. Those type of curriculums I really like are invaluable to that space. So when you go through the other certification programs, you are going to learn those comfort techniques, but certain things about cultural competence and cultural reflectiveness and cultural respectfulness, those things are the things that can be missing, and they're really invaluable in birthing spaces, because there is an empowerment piece to having doulas in birthing spaces, and it helps not only as a doula to be empowered, but it helps you to empower your clients when you have that knowledge base. So I definitely, like we said, you know, from a historical context, even going all the way far back in midwifery, you know, not all midwives were formally trained. When we go back to our African American grand midwives. They weren't all formally trained, but they were pillars of the community, and they were who made our Black births beautiful then, right? And so they're still making our Black births beautiful now with the extensive training and certifications. And the same goes for doulas, right? And so I just want to kind of reiterate that piece, because those are the things that you can't always, like, you can't really put a value on, but they're totally invaluable, but you have to have them in those spaces. So like the other places, you'll get your hip squeeze, you'll get your Miles circuit, but the racial justice component in birthing is a huge like check mark that you want to see in your curriculum. And so yes, get that certification. Certifications, as Kayla said, they vary in time, and obviously because of the pandemic, the shift from in-person to virtual trainings also largely impacts the length of time in your training process. But we are glad to have everyone come into the fold when you come in to help save lives and bring these beautiful babies like Kayla's holding. I keep smiling looking down, into the world, bring these babies earthside safely.
Thank you so much. I'm continuously learning about midwives, about doulas, about different things. So I'm sure I'm going to learn from this panel also, as I do in my everyday work. But I really agree with you said about learning about RJ, reproductive justice. And if you're empowered, you're going to empower your patients. And I think that's super important, being in such a vulnerable space of giving birth, having somebody in that room that can make you feel empowered to make your decisions and feel comfortable, and knowing that, they have your best interest at heart is something invaluable. So I agree with what you say, and this isn't necessarily my profession, but I know that would make me feel very, very comfortable. So thank you for mentioning that. And I will pass it to you, Linda, to tell us a little about, I was about to say doulas and midwives.
So for midwifery training, we are licensed by the state of New Jersey. And so for nurse midwives, you need the RN first, and then you have a degree at the graduate level. So most of the midwives in our state are nurse midwives. We have about almost 400 midwives in the state of New Jersey, of which 375 are nurse midwives. And then we have about 16 CPM, certified professional midwives, and about 16 CM. So I know that's the alphabet. I call it the alphabet soup of midwifery, which can get kind of confusing for people. CNMs and CMs are both educated in the same space. The only difference is that CNMs have a nursing degree and CMs do not. They have a bachelor's degree in a related field, in a health field that is not nursing, but we do the same education at the graduate level. So you either get a master's degree or the DNP degree, Doctor of Nursing Practice degree, depending on which program you go to. And then you sit a national board exam and then are licensed by the state of New Jersey. Certified professional midwives have two paths to becoming midwives. They can either do apprenticeship and what's called a portfolio, where they go through a certain kind of individualized study and then sit the national exam, the NARM exam, or they can attend a midwifery school, which may or may not grant a degree. Some of the midwifery CPM midwifery programs are at the master's level, some are baccalaureate, and some are what all midwifery programs actually started out as kind of certificate programs, and you come out with a certificate in midwifery. But again, they need to complete that. They also take a national exam and are licensed by the state, so that everybody has a license and certain criteria to be able to be licensed by the state. Also, we all have to do continuing education and then recertify either every 3 years, I think, for CPMs, and every 5 years for CNMs. So that recertification process includes continuing education and reexamination. So there's a lot of really stringent regulations and licensure requirements for midwifery.
So with all these trainings and certifications and retrainings and recertifications, I'm sure this costs of having all that time of you going through all this licensing and years of practice. So how much does it cost to receive a midwife or a doula, or does it cost?
So midwifery is not cheap. Unfortunately, it's pretty expensive to go to graduate school. For instance, there's a program here. The only midwifery program in New Jersey is at Rutgers. And I think, I don't know exactly how much that is, but we're talking probably in the area of 15,000 or more for the total program. So it's a 3-year program at the graduate level. So you can, kind of see that that is going to be expensive. There are other programs that are distance learning programs. They have a distance learning component. So that even you can live in New Jersey and say go to Frontier, which is a distance learning program, and the cost may not be as much. There are a variety of scholarships. The Midwives of Color of the American College of Nurse Midwives has scholarships and support opportunities available for people of color looking to become midwives, but it is not an inexpensive proposition. Licensure also costs. There's licensure every year, every 2 years to get your license renewed. Again, our own chapter of ACNM, American College of Nurse Midwives here in New Jersey, has an award every year for a student midwife of color to pay for that. So there are ways that we are really working to support people of color coming into midwifery and help them get through all of the costs, but it is unfortunately a fairly expensive proposition.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So now that you've paid for all these trainings to become a midwife, if someone was to inquire to have a midwife help them give birth, or even just, in replace of their OBGYN, how much does it cost to receive that care from a midwife? And does your insurance cover that?
Yes, so that the good thing is that midwifery care by CNMs is covered by all insurance in New Jersey, both private insurance and Medicaid. So that for most people seeking a midwife for care, they can, their insurance will cover that cost. At this time, the CPMs are not yet being covered by most insurance policies. So this is one of the things that we're working on, because it's really important that in order to have the kind of birth that we want, we can access any kind of midwife that we want. CPMs usually work in the community, in community birth, which would be either birth center birth or home birth. Although CNMs also do that, but it is important that we have access in order to really be able to make sure that we can obtain the kind of care and support that we need. So we're working to do that. But at this point in time, that still might be an out-of-pocket cost.
Thank you so much. And if anyone can give some information about how much it costs to receive some care from a doula.
Okay, I guess I'll take first stab, Kayla. So the doula certification is not necessarily, definitely doesn't have the same price tag as the midwifery certification and process. We do have different challenges though when it comes down to the reimbursement. So to go down to the cost of training, most doula certifications are going to run you upward of at least $1,200 or more. Would you say about accurate, Kayla, right? $1,200 or more for your certification. And that'll give you, use like a training manual. You'll get some hands-on training. If you're going obviously in person versus virtual, of course, things look a little different due to COVID, but in times where we've had some numbers go down in COVID, I've seen in-person trainings resume. Then I've seen, unfortunately, some of them go back to virtual. So some of those trainings, for that price, you may get a very long weekend of 3 days of 8 hours a day, or it can be over the course of, I've seen 4 to 6 weeks where they're all evening courses. It all depends. A challenge though for doulas when it comes to the costs is that we are not covered through insurance like midwives are. New Jersey is more on the cutting edge when it comes to getting Medicaid reimbursement, but that does not help all birthing persons, right? So the mother who does now, or the birthing person who doesn't qualify for Medicaid or has private insurance, is really kind of stuck with having to pay for a doula out of pocket. And our fees vary, our packages vary a lot of time based on our level of experience, our time having done this work. And one of the things that we have a challenge that doulas are up against is being able to establish ourselves as having livable wages for the work we do. And being up against the fact that we don't necessarily, I guess, always garner the same level of respect from the insurance perspective, which also makes it harder to garner the same respect when it comes to setting our wages. And I think that's a kind way of putting it, right, Kayla? So
A very kind way.
okay. So just I can tell you that even myself, there are plenty of doulas who would love to be doulas full time and be able to support our families and have that as our career, just as midwives do. And unfortunately, it's very hard to do given the fact that we aren't reimbursed through insurance. And then it's not easy for everyone to afford us out of pocket. And that's another part of this work where we have to do our advocacy, because evidence has shown, is evidence-based, that we are an asset to birthing spaces. And if we want things to continue to trend in a more positive direction, you absolutely want us there. And so we should be valued the same way when it comes to looking to for all insurance carriers to reimburse us for our work, and reimburse us at rates that are livable wages, so that we can do this as a full-time career as well. So that is kind of like one of those things where, yes, it's not as steep of a price tag as far as like when you compare it to midwifery, but even with a lower cost of certification, we do not get the same return on investment at this point when it comes to the wage perspective. And we definitely attend the same number of hours, if not more, because we're there, through, we get there active labor. Some of us arrive before active labor, all the way through delivery. And if you were to times that at an hourly rate, and you think about any other career or any other profession, you would definitely say we are underpaid. But we are there for the birth outcomes, but we do need to be able to still gain a respectable living income.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So speaking on advocacy and reproductive justice and helping people through birthing and really trying to help with the whole experience, I can assume why some of you all became doulas and midwives, but because clearly you love to help others, but what is your own personal testimony of what made you want to become a doula or a midwife? And I'll pass.
So I will say, when I was in nursing school a very, 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 very long time ago, that first birth that I saw, I was just like, oh my God, I'm hooked. Like, it was just, like, this is really great. Now, at that time, there were two kinds of advanced practice nurses that you could be. You could be a nurse anesthetist and you could be a nurse midwife. There were many more nurse anesthetists than nurse midwives, still are. And I had heard about that, and I thought, oh, that was what I was going to be, until I saw my first birth. And I was like, oh no, I'm not spending my life putting people to sleep and waking them up. That's not, no. This birth thing is really wonderful. This is what I've got to do. I still didn't even know anything about midwives until I met a Black midwife, and she started telling me about what she was doing. And I thought, this has got to be the most incredible thing. And somebody's actually going to pay me to do this. Although I will say to Crystal and Kayla, when I started as a midwife back in the 70s, we weren't reimbursed with by insurance either. So I think that the timing is so much better because the spotlight is on maternal health, and you have the ear of so many, we have the ear of so many people, that I think the ability to move forward in this space and get everybody where they need to be as far as being reimbursed and compensated, and justly compensated, is a much more positive thing. You know, like, we fought tooth and nail to try to get each insurance company, you know, to cover midwifery care. So definitely know what that feels like. But yeah, just was the whole idea of birth was such a profound experience, and seeing how actually the birthing experience can be so empowering for people, and wanting to be a part of that was what drew me to the profession. And then finding out that not only could I take care of people as they were birthing, but I could remain with them. And that's been one of the real great things, is to take care of people and take care of them and their birth, and then take care of them for their reproductive health care, and then take care of their daughter and their sister, and be the family midwife, and really be, you know, I feel akin to the grand midwives, who were really the pillar of the community. The community was centered around their knowledge. And so that's what drew me to it.
Thank you so much.
That's awesome. I'll go next. So what drew me to this work? In addition to, like you said, I love helping people. That's what my, degree is, in psychology and everything like that. After having my own daughter, I just kind of realized like there was something that I lacked on my birthing team, which was quite frustrating for me at the time. And it drove me into doing more research. Through that research, I found like what I needed was like an advocate. And I was like, okay, so finding out more information about what a doula actually does, the educational portion that comes along with that, I was just like, you know what, let me just be the resource that I needed. And that's really what put me in that space. And I got certified right away, and added other things along the way, but that's really what got me in this space. But what has kept me here has more so like the calling of being a doula. I'm not sure if anybody has talked about that at all, but like most people that are in birth work, they feel called to it. I'm gonna be honest. Those that have a passion for it, there's literally a calling on that. And like just having an understanding of, what the maternal mortality rates and, things like that. And wanting to really just help women. That's what's kept me here. But then also my own personal experience, just not wanting any woman to feel the way that I felt. I was left kind of feeling like I had no control over my birth. I felt like, that I should have known more. I felt like, me and my husband were left in the dark with some things. And my thing was, I want to empower women, because it's such an empowering experience to give birth. And it doesn't matter what way you're giving that birth, whether it's through belly birth, cesarean, I like to call it a belly birth, or through, vaginally. It doesn't matter how that's happening, but every woman deserves that empowerment and to feel, like I am woman, hear me roar, through that experience. And, I just wanted to add to that. So that's what brought me into this work.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
What brought me into this work was my own, like Kayla, my own personal experience. I had a really, really rough pregnancy, high-risk pregnancy, preeclampsia, preterm birth. Things happened quickly. And I didn't understand why. I had type of pregnancy that no one ever talked about. And so I felt, like Kayla said, I felt very much in the dark. Everyone always talked about like all these great things No one talked to you about like pregnancies where you're feeling depressed, where you're experiencing anxiety, because you don't know what's going on. You don't know why you're having all these complications. You don't know why everything feels like life and death. And then you learn that it really is life or death. And then you learn that you just escaped death and all these things. And so, I guess kind of like I had to know, like Kayla, I had to know why. I had to know like what happened. And so when in doing that, I learned more about the disparities. And at the time, I mean, I was already well over knee deep in avid activism with NAACP. And so what also came to light is that while it's definitely no secret to most, and even in NAACP, it's still very patriarchal, right? And so we, well, we talk about health, but we weren't talking about maternal health. And so I said, wow, that's an alarm we have to start ringing. But I will say, let me back then, I say it from a national standpoint, because our state conference health chair was ringing the alarm on all things health, including maternal health, but even the health chair for the state conference had started taking an even closer look at Black maternal health, because when full disclosure, that's my mother, right? And so she's watching her daughter have this very tumultuous pregnancy that was really hard for her to watch. And so just as I learned from her, we used our platform for good, right? And start ringing the alarm and being able to use the space of the state conference to say, no, let's talk about Black maternal health through the NAACP in New Jersey, right? Can't control what national's doing, but we can say in New Jersey, we're going to start talking about Black maternal health here. I founded my organization in the midst of my pregnancy because it began as a blog, because I honestly didn't think I was going to make it through my pregnancy. And so I wanted to have something for my daughter to look back on if she made it and I didn't. Right. And so it became like a love letter to her. And so from there, being that obviously I'm still here and I'm still ringing alarms, I took that and I expanded it into, the doula services and the advocacy work. And like Kayla, I didn't want any other woman birthing person to experience that kind of pregnancy or feel like they couldn't talk about their pregnancy, if it didn't feel, rosy and dazzled with glitter and sugar. They could have a space to talk about it, and that there's going to be someone there to support them through it. And so, becoming a doula was really like gratifying for me. And I share Kayla's sentiment about the calling. I love being in birth spaces. It doesn't matter how tired I am. When the bat phone goes off and someone is in labor, I am ready to go. And I am excited about bringing that baby earthside. I have a playlist for it. It is all about, it's like, it's a whole healing experience. It's healing, right? Because that's new life. And so like, there's just, that's what brings me to the work. That's what keeps me in the work. My pregnancy was not filled with rose-colored glasses, but I still thank God. I thank the Creator for it, because it got me to my calling. And I have every day now to walk in my actual calling into the space I'm supposed to be in. So I'm thankful for the journey.
Thank you so much. I do not have any children or haven't had a birthing experience, but just being a Black woman going to doctor's offices or going to like the OBGYN, I remember getting my first like pap smear, and my gynecologist didn't even talk to me, just started like just doing my pap smear. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, I felt so confused, and I left and I got in the car and I was telling my mom, like, they use this thing and trying to like describe what's going on. She's like, oh, you got a pap smear. I'm like, yeah, I didn't even, like, she barely talked to me and I didn't even say anything. And ever since I was younger, my parents always said like I had a fire in me. Like I've always asked questions, like where it kind of got me in trouble when I was little. But I've always been vocal about like wanting to know answers about things or advocating for myself since I was a kid. But in that moment, I had nothing to say because I was just like so stunned and surprised. Like I couldn't even find the words. So sometimes you could say like how you would behave in a situation, but when you're in that situation, it's like a whole different story. So I know this isn't a birthing situation, but I wish I had someone like advocating for me in that room or being passionate about like their profession in that room with me. It would have been a really better experience. And ever since then, I've been looking for like a passionate and someone who can relate to me type of gynecologist. And I found one recently. So I'm super excited about that. But my first experience was not pleasant. So hearing you all talking about caring for your patients and being an advocate for your patients really sounds amazing to me. And I really look forward to having a midwife or a doula one day when I have the opportunity to give birth, because I think that will make all the difference. And so I just commend you all for the work that you do and can say that I know you're changing lives every day. So just wanted to put that out there.
Well, you're well connected, Shemay. You can have both. You can have
Yeah.
midwife and doula.
I'm going to call
When
you
the time
on
is
the
right.
call.
We'll hook you up. We'll definitely hook you up.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's work of the heart. You know,
Yes.
it's calling. And I've done so many first GYN exams for young people having their first exam and talking them through it. And, you know, this is a speculum here, hold it, play with it. If you want to put it in yourself, you can. You know, we don't even need to use it because we can do, you know, there's other things that we can do, and giving people options and helping people understand that they have options and helping people find their voice. And if you go to somebody else besides me, this is how you use your voice to make sure you get the care that you need to get and that you deserve to get. So it is definitely a calling.
Absolutely. And I will continue this by asking, can some of you all talk about the history about Black birth workers and how they had an impact on the Black community and the maternal health crisis and disparities that have gone on? So I know some of you all had played a part in that over these years, but to just speak on some of that past history. And I know we talked a little bit about grand midwives, but just want to expand on that.
Yeah, well, I think the place of midwives in the beginning of birth in this country has really been overlooked. The indigenous and Black midwives really were the people that were bringing all the babies into the world, right? The people that the midwives that were enslaved and came from Africa were the ones that were not only birthing the babies of the other people who were enslaved, they were birthing the white babies, and the indigenous women were midwives were birthing all of those babies. And when, you know, in the early 1900s, when basically twilight sleep came in, and it was decided by the medical community that to really decided to medicalize birth, bring birth into the hospital and make money off of birth. That was when midwives were really cut out of the picture. And then but we have that long tradition of caring for women. And even after that, you know, transformation began to take place in the segregated South, where Black women could not get care in white hospitals, the Black midwives were still caring for those women and making sure that they had they had great outcomes. And that is the history that we continue to uphold, that there has been a long history in our country of Black birth workers really caring for people and making sure people got the care that they needed when they were cut out from other places. I was actually born at Provident Hospital in Chicago, which was the first Black-owned hospital in Chicago, built because we couldn't go to the white hospitals in Chicago. It was built by a Black physician to teach other Black physician and to teach Black women to be nurses because they weren't being admitted to nursing schools. So we have this tradition, you know, in our community of taking care of our own. And we as Black birth workers, I think, continue to uphold that tradition.
Thank you. And if anyone wants to shed some history on doulas, or if that was kind of covered.
I think that was really kind of covered earlier. I mean, we kind of follow into, you know, the steps of midwives, right? So I know particularly in our training, Shafia Monroe's training and many of the other, especially the Black women-led training, is that we follow in the model. We are well versed in the midwifery model of care for that very reason, right? Because we support the midwives, right? And that's what we've been doing historically, because as Linda has stated, you know, they were, and they are, because there is no past tense about this, right? They were and they are. Linda is, you know, a pillar in the community. And she has helped, done so much for many Black families, and I'm sure all families, but in this space and in this conversation, that's what the midwives did, and that is what our model of care supports. And that's why we're all so patient centered, birthing person centered, because we are all under the same model of care. And that makes a tremendous difference in outcomes and in experiences for those who come to us for our services. So I think that Linda certainly, you know, surmised it very, very well. And that's why there's still such a tremendous value in our service, because we are still experiencing in healthcare basis. And so you still need to have still other in the places, it still makes a difference. It changes life.
And the evidence shows that midwifery care and doula care decreases C-section rates. You have higher breastfeeding rates. You have lower preterm birth rates. So there's plenty of evidence that shows the value of the care that we give to birthing people.
Yeah, I not to be negative on the situation, this is beautiful. I'm a little nervous when the time comes of all the things that could possibly happen. And I really wasn't as aware. And so I started learning from working for Planned Parenthood. Like I've heard of some things, but indulging myself in this work, I'm like, wow, like the time will come, but I'm very glad that there's professionals out there like you all to help through that process. So the more you know, the farther you go. So the farther I'll go with you all on my team. So when I give you all a call, that time will be coming. So I wanted to also ask you all, what has been the most rewarding and also what's been the most difficult of being a birth worker? And you can answer either or.
So the most rewarding is being at a birth. I mean, just, you know, it's just nothing tops it. It's just really wonderful. And I guess the second most rewarding is being able to do intergenerational care, you know, like being able to, I did retire from, I don't catch babies anymore. So I stopped catching babies before I was catching the third generation, but I have caught the second generation. And that's really, I think, one of the most interesting. I had a couple that I had delivered both of them, the mom and the dad. And that was pretty great. So just being there for the person and the family at the birth and really just sharing that experience is the most rewarding thing.
I would have to say for myself, it would be to see that individuals, so I'm talking about the client, so to see that individuals birthing desires come to pass. So, you know, like it's beautiful to like walk them through it. But for them to, whether their goal is to advocate for themselves or to speak up, or whether their goal is to, you know, have just whatever their goal is, but to see that actually come into fruition. And then my favorite portion is actually being able to, you know, educate. I'm an educator by nature, and so I love to teach. Sorry, y'all. No, Yazelle is definitely getting hungry. But I love teaching. And so just being able to educate and truly help people have a better understanding and really break things down, so that we're able to, help them to make the best informed decisions for themselves, for their families, help them to break molds within, the system, because, as we all know, there's some things that, aren't always in our favor, but when you have more knowledge, you're able to speak up about those things and really stand up for yourself. So I think that those are some of my favorite parts about this work.
I'd say for me, kind of like, for me, my favorite part is the birth, like being there. I think like one of my most recent births I attended was a VBAC, vaginal birth after C-section. And a lot of my moms, I will have moms of all different, backgrounds, as far as like, I hate the term geriatric, but I have some more seasoned moms, because I was a geriatric mom, so I really hate it. But they have my more seasoned moms, and so they come with their additional. They're automatically considered high risk, right? And so those are the moms who I hold really near and dear. I hold all my moms near and dear, but they have their own sets of challenges and their own sets of apprehensions, just because when they go to their doctor's office, they've been told they're a geriatric mom, right? So yeah, I hold them so close. And so when they get to have like the birth that they laid out in their birth plan, whether it's a VBAC, I had a mom, one of my seasoned moms had a VBAC, a successful VBAC, beautiful 8-pound baby girl. I had another mom. She was one of my younger moms, but it was her second child. She had difficulty with, progressing. And one of the things that she said to me that meant so much to me, she said, I just remember, and we were over 24 hours in the hospital before we got to delivery, and because of the slow progression, but she remembered me saying, and I didn't remember saying it, but thank God she said, I remember you saying to me, as the doctors would come in and keep trying to, people would try to convince her to do different things. And she said, I remember you looking at me and you said, you remember only you have the ability to change your birth plan. And she said, you reminded me to go ahead and stick with what we discussed. We had a plan when we went in, and we stuck to it. And like Kayla said, seeing her she got what she wanted. I mean, by the time the baby came and all, it's so exciting. Like I said, the birth music goes on, we get excited. And once I come home, I usually just pass out, that's it. Like it all goes away. But in that moment, like that's the most rewarding time, when we get to that time where it's go time, like when it's time to push and all that, like I see no blood. I see nothing else that anybody else thinks might be gory or make you squeamish. I just see the beauty of life. And like, it just literally transforms the entire space to this most beautiful space. And it's like, you instantly feel this honor to be in this space, because you're there when this new life takes its first breath. That's something that never changes. Like no one else gets that privilege. Like it happened. You can't redo that moment. And that to me is like the most exciting and most gratifying moment. The moment that I hold, I know I didn't do all the pushing, right? But I'm holding my breath for it, and it excites me every single time. I'm tickled pink, waiting for that first breath, that first cry. It's just, that's the most gratifying part. And then the other part I will say I love is when, months later or whatever, I get that random picture in the Halloween costume, or the first this, the first that, all my M&Ms, that's what I call my babies. But all my M&Ms are so adorable, and that just makes my day. So it's beautiful.
I'm getting pictures now of these babies that are in college and having their own babies.
Oh gosh.
That's so gratifying. But the other thing I wanted to say is really gratifying is finding the normal in everyone. And I think, Crystal, when you talk about, people being identified as high risk, I just think I say you're not high risk, you're very special. And making sure that they know that no matter what the problem is, there is something that is normal in your experience, and we're going to. That's where, like, we may collaboratively manage somebody may have to be totally managed by the physician because of the high risk piece, but that doesn't mean we can't find that piece of it that's normal and help them find the piece of their journey that they can still own and that still can and be really special for them. Because sometimes, you get lost in all of the technology and stuff. It's when somebody has high risk problems, and we know that those do occur, but for no matter how high risk the mom or how high risk the situation might be, there is still something in there that you can uphold and uplift that is normal and that will help that person get the best possible experience that they can in that situation.
Absolutely.
It sounds like an amazing thing to witness in person. I actually seen a birth, but through FaceTime. When my sister gave birth, I was in college, and they asked the doctor, could I be on FaceTime? And I watched it, bottoms up. Actually screen recorded for her just in case if she wanted to watch it later on. I said this to her, I don't have it anymore. But it was something amazing to witness. When my sister told me that she was pregnant, actually, like, I started crying, like, not like boo-hooing, but it's crying at the fact that, like, my sister is having a child. Like, I could not believe it. And my sister like, Shemay, you were just so dramatic. But I was just stunned. So of course I cried when I saw her giving birth, through FaceTime. So I can only imagine how amazing that was in person. And I know how you said the things that could be gory. To me, I thought everything was beautiful. I was like, this is amazing. Like, my nephew was here, and I just felt like it's such a vulnerable moment for people, or for anyone giving birth. So to be able to witness that vulnerable moment, I have never seen my sister like that, and I might not ever again see my sister like that. But it was such an amazing thing to witness. So you guys get to do that every day, not every day, but however often you get to do that. So that's really amazing. And I will also have one more question to ask you all. So speaking about giving birth, we haven't got to talk about where you give birth. So I know there's home births, there's community birthing centers. So what is the most safe place to give birth? Isn't one place that's more safe than the other? Just want some feedback about that.
So it depends on the person, right? So community birth can be very safe. Home birth and birth center birth can be very safe for people that are healthy. If people are high risk, then that's not the place for them to birth. The safest place would be in the hospital. And then besides safety, you want to know, is it the right place for you? So what do you want out of your birth? Do you want to have an epidural? Then, home birth, community birth is not going to be for you. Do you feel safe in your home? Is it a safe environment for you to give birth? And so there's a lot of different things to consider when considering giving birth. The statistics are really support the safety of community birth, because those of us those midwives and physicians who attend people in the community, will look at the risk level and identify who needs to deliver in a hospital and who can give birth in the community. There's a new study that just came out the end of last year from Washington State, and they looked at over 10,000 births, about half and half home and birth center, and they're again following certain protocols where no previous C-section, no high blood pressure, no diabetes, one baby, head down, kind of the normal healthy person giving birth. They had really excellent outcomes, and much lower when you look at we're talking about the total maternal and fetal perinatal mortality rates, much lower rates of problems that you see overall. So very safe. When you select it in the right way, it's a very safe place to give birth. The hospital, as we know, as we've seen from various stories, is not always a safe place for us to give birth, right? And that's one of the things that we're working towards is making every place a safe place, right? So that if you choose to give birth in the hospital, or if you need to give birth in the hospital, that environment is going to be safe for you. And that's so much of the work that we still need to do.
Thank you so much. And I know I said this is the last question, but I want to ask one more question. So the title of this event is My Black Birthday is Beautiful. It's during Black History Month. We have 3 amazing Black panelists, and I am a Black moderator. So we're very much sitting our Blackness today. So I'm going to ask this last question about doulas and midwives. Are majority of doulas and midwives Black? Do their race and ethnicity change and vary, or is it predominantly like a Black profession?
I would definitely say for doulas, it is very mixed here in Jersey. I can only speak on Jersey. Well, I can speak on Philly too, but it's very mixed here in Jersey. You know, Black doulas, white doulas, and then other cultures as well. However, there's becoming more of an influx of Black doulas because of, I think people are also starting to gain a better understanding of the maternal mortality rates. People are gaining just more of an understanding of, number one, what a doula even is, right? And even, you know, how they can become a doula, or what doulas actually do, how we service the community, and things like that. And so people are wanting to be a part of the birthing community. So I would definitely say that there has been, at least I would say over like the last 2 or 3 years, Crystal, could you attest to that? That it's definitely been an influx, at least I've seen here in Jersey.
Yeah, I would definitely piggyback on everything that Kayla said regarding the numbers of doulas, and we're starting to, you know, we're definitely infiltrating birthing spaces, and that's a good thing. And we need to continue with that. And with that, we also need to continue our fight to get doulas the living wages, the livable wages that we deserve. Linda definitely gave me hope. You know, maybe it's on the horizon, right?
Yes.
With, you know, seeing us, you know, coming in as a true workforce here in New Jersey. Let's start seeing, you know, doulas listed as a salary base, and not necessarily have to always be based on packages and hours. And so, yeah. So no, we're not the majority, but we have definitely infiltrated the doula space, where I think that probably just maybe prior to the last 4 years, maybe, Linda, right? That we weren't the majority for sure.
Linda, you're muted.
I know. I'm on mute. I'm on mute.
Sometimes it's hard to get to that button. It's like it moves.
Goodness, you're like, so I think because of all of the attention, you know, that's being placed, and the spotlight that's being placed, this is one of the really good things that's come of that. Unfortunately for midwifery, we can't say the same thing. So right now, about 86% of midwives in the country, depending on if you're talking about CNMs or CPMs, somewhere between 80 and 85% are white. About 7 to 10% are Black, and then about 6 to 7% are Latinx, and then that other like 1 or 2% are other people of color, so Asian, Indigenous. So it's really when that, you know, switch over was made, when in the middle of the 1900s, to having nurse midwives being supposedly the only acceptable kind of midwives, and having the midwifery training be in primarily in schools of nursing at the graduate level. What's happened was that it's been a barrier to women of people and people of color coming into the midwifery profession. We are working very hard to improve that, to get more people of color in these spaces. But at this time, and the statistics in New Jersey are pretty much similar to those are the national numbers, and it looks pretty much like that in New Jersey as well, that Black midwives are still very much in the minority.
Thank you. That is the sad reality for a lot of health professions. So I'm not majorly surprised, but I hope that there will be a change. So again, thank you all for joining us today, all of our amazing panelists, giving us some background on their experience and all their different expertise. So I'm very happy to moderate this panel with you all and have all the attendants. And this will be recorded and we'll share on our website and future events and on our social media. So if you would like the recording, feel free to email me. Of course, I will send a follow-up email and include some of the panelists' information and organizations they work for. So if you have any other questions to ask them. So thank you again for joining, and everyone, you can have a great evening.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.